sorry for that delay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Luckily, I am able to project with no problem. So again, welcome to day 2 of Diversity Week. As promised, we have some wonderful performers here today to provide some education and resources and things of that nature in regards to the Afro Peruvian culture. So I would like for you to give a round of applause for Monica and Miguel.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning. Let's try buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
Yay! All right. Well, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much for having us today. Can you hear me okay? I'll try to be as loud as possible. We'll be louder with the musical instruments, but I'm not sure about the voice, but I'll try my best. Thank you again for having us. My name is Monica, and I have the immense honor. You guys are so lucky because the University of Washington brought this amazing artist all the way from Peru as a visiting artist at the University of Washington. Please welcome Miguel Ballumbrosio. So in another time of the year it would have been just me, but today we need Miguel. And Miguel comes from a family that is pretty well recognized around the world in the artistic scene, the Ballumbrosio family. And Miguel lived in France, in Spain, in Germany. He did a lot of artistic work in Europe, and he's now back in Peru, developing his cultural center, educating his own community about their own traditions. So we're gonna get to hear him play and share and learn a little bit of Afro Peruvian culture. Who's been to Peru? Anyone? Oh, many of you. All right. Does anybody here has ever run into Afro Peruvian culture while you were in Peru? Oh, have you been anywhere in Peru where you were exposed to Afro Peruvian culture before? There were some performers. Okay. So you saw great. So she got to see a performance in Peru. Ella he visto música afro-peruana. I'm going to be translating back and forth. So we're going to start with some music. Let's start with some festejo music, and then what we'll do will explain a little bit of background and musical instruments, but we're going to start with some music here. Okay, un segundito y...
La explotación más cruel, la por igual.
from these. There you go. Okay, so some of you have been to Peru, right? Peru is such a beautiful country, and it's very, very diverse geography and also language and culture. And so we have three main regions. We have the coast, right? That goes from Ecuador down here. It's a small region. If you are in your car in Lima, in the city, and you drive just 45 minutes east, you start going up the hills. Okay, you have the Andes crossing the country, right? And on the other side of the Andes, we have the Amazons. And each region, north, central, south, has their own culture, their own music, their own traditions. Miguel comes from a town south of Lima in the state of Ica, right here. Like 2 to 3 hours driving south, you get to Miguel's community within the state of Ica. Okay? And I was born and raised in Lima, and I ended up in the Pacific Northwest as a student at the University of Washington. So that's why I'm here. So, as you know, the history, right? There were 12 million people were enslaved and taken from Africa to the entire American continent. And Peru wasn't an exception. Maybe 40% of the people that were enslaved and taken to the Americas went just to Brazil. So Brazil, for example, has heavy African influence, right? Concentration of African descent people. And some went to the Caribbean, some came to the US, some came to Peru and other parts of South America as well, right? So we also, Peru, many people don't know, how come there's Afro Peruvian culture? How come there's African descent people in Peru? Because we also had a history of slavery in Peru, and actually Lima, Peru was the capital of Spanish colonialism in South America. So Lima was a center, and there was a lot of African influence on the coast of Peru, especially Lima. And something that I always teach, I go to schools and teach the kids, the American continent, when the Europeans or the Spaniards came to Peru, or they came to South America, they found a lot of different indigenous communities and different language groups, right? Because we tend to think, oh, they came, you're right, the Spaniards came or the Europeans came and they found indigenous people. But we don't stop to think that actually that community that was already in the Americas was very diverse. So depending on where they went, right, they mixed this cultural mixing to different shapes and forms, because indigenous people spoke different languages and they had different traditions, right? So I always like to remind people of that, because we tend to think that it was just this one thing, but actually it was very, very diverse. Same. Oh. Oh my goodness. Okay, good. Everybody got the story so far? Okay. Good. So I really like to talk, when we talk about diversity, right? This is one of the things that we tend to overlook. We don't think about this history. The Americas was very, very, very diverse everywhere. And then the same for the Europeans that came, right? It wasn't one group. We had Portuguese Europeans going to Brazil. We have Spaniards go to South America, the rest of South America. We have the English come to the US, and then there was French and going to the Caribbean. So there was over 400 years, there was a lot of cultural encounters and mixing, right? So diversity among the indigenous population, diversity among the Europeans that came to the continent, and of course the African continent was also very diverse. So the people that from Africa that were taken to the American continent wasn't one group of people. Also was multiple language groups and cultures. We had the Yoruba, mostly going to the Caribbean, then Congo going to Brazil, and Angola, and all these different language groups. So when we think about this cultural mixing, it's really, really important to think about this. Diversity in the indigenous population, diversity among the Europeans, and diversity in Africa as well, because that's what gave shape to the different traditions in the different countries. Okay, good. So that's the slave ship. So our presentation today is going to focus on this concept of bricolage or recycling, right? African descent people, when they were taken to the American continent, they couldn't bring their own musical instruments, right? They were prohibited from practicing their own religious traditions or spiritual practices, and their language, right? Many things were taken from them. So when they found themselves in this continent, they had to kind of recreate or use memory to remember as best as they could their own traditions and find a way to continue practicing their culture. So since we're talking about music, I thought it would be fun to talk about the way in which, in the case of Peru, right, people had to create their own musical instruments. Some of you are familiar with these instruments, right? You've seen these instruments, I'm sure. And this is not Peru. Where is this from? New Orleans, yeah, US, right? It's the US. People had to make their own instruments with what they had at hand. Okay, so you got an example for here, the US. Let's look at other examples. For example, this is Trinidad and Tobago. Who has been to Trinidad? Some people have been to Trinidad, right? Also, the skin drums were banned in Trinidad at some point. So this is an oil country. So the people said, okay, well, take my drums away, but I'll still figure out a way to continue making music. So they cut these oil drums and tune them and play music. We have the kitiplas, for example, in Venezuela. In Venezuela, also there's all kinds of musical instruments. This is one example. These are bamboo shoots that people stomp on the floor on a rock or brick like that, right? And they make beautiful music. Then we have in Mexico, maybe you've been exposed to some jarocho music from Veracruz, the Caribbean coast of Mexico. The people dance on a tarima. A wooden drum is actually a drum. They just don't play with their hands, they play with their feet. In Mexico, like in Peru, skin drums were also banned. And people had to figure out how to continue drumming, right? So this is one way in which in Mexico, the drum exists. So, in Peru we have many instruments. And the first one, and probably the most important for us, is the cajon. Can you say cajon? Cajon means, what does it mean, cajon? Anybody know? Big box. It's been a difficult morning. Okay, so Miguel is showing the cajon. Of course, this is a fancy version of this drum. This didn't look like this originally. This instrument came from the crates that people used to ship fruits and vegetables, okay? So people started banging on these boxes. And now it has become this very fancy instrument that didn't look like that before. So, should we demonstrate a little bit of cajon? We both are gonna play a little bit of cajon just for you to see. Everybody can see, okay? Yeah? Okay. Vamos un poquito más adelante para que nos puedan ver. thank you. So this is a very, very rich instrument. As you can see, it's a box, right? But it has so many sounds, and well, Miguel is a master musician, so you got to see him play the cajon. And the cajon has become a very important symbol of Peruvian identity for us in Peru and outside of Peru. It has become a really, really important instrument. In 2001, the Peruvian government recognized this instrument as our national instrument. And because of that, there's a lot of, there's a festival. This picture shows, it's from a festival. Every year in Lima, in downtown Lima, people gather for a week-long festival around this musical instrument. That is that important, right? It's that important. So it's a picture showing the crowd of people coming with their cajon to play, to be part of that festival. And here is another picture that shows the downtown Lima plaza packed with people playing cajon. This is the Cajon Festival. Should we, les enseñamos un ritmito para que canten? Okay, we're gonna teach you a little cajon pattern. That you don't have to move. We're not gonna. Don't be afraid. You're gonna say, maybe play, and let's do it just for fun. A ver, Miguel.
Sí, podría ser vals.
Yeah.
Quieren bailar también.
Miguel is inviting you to dance if you want to, or play along. Okay.
El vals peruano.
We have Peruvian waltz.
Sabemos que el vals es el vals origen europeo.
Yeah. So the waltz has European origin.
Pero en Perú hay una forma de tener el vals con el cajón.
But in Peru we play also the waltz with the cajon.
Y el vals siempre es de 3 tiempos.
So the waltz is always three times, right? 3 beats.
Y en la forma europea se baila.
That's the European way. That's the European way.
Pero en Perú, porque hay percusión, se baila diferente.
But in Peru, because we added the cajon, we dance it differently.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, so Miguel is going to demonstrate the waltz, Peruvian version of waltz.
Es muy fácil, vamos a hacer el to en el grave y el ma en el agudo.
So it's very easy. We're going to do the to on the low pitch and ma on the high pitch.
Y vamos a hacer toma, toma, ma. Toma, toma, ma. Toma, toma,
Yes.
ma.
Good.
Ahora otro ritmo que se llama festejo.
So now, good. Everybody got that? Okay, now we're gonna do a rhythm called festejo, which means what? What does festejo mean? Festival, festival, fiesta, festive, celebration, festejo.
Y vamos a encontrar unas palabras que dice yo no como camote con maní.
Ay, ay, ay. Okay, so he wants you to repeat the following words. Yo no como, I don't eat, right? Yo no como camote, sweet potato. Yo no como camote
Con maní.
con maní. It doesn't make sense. It's like, I don't eat sweet potato with peanuts. That's what you're saying. But the people use these to learn rhythmic patterns. So repeat, yo no como camote con maní. Yo no como camote con maní.
Yo no como camote con maní. Yo no como camote con maní. Yo no como camote con maní. Yo no como camote con maní. Yo no como camote con maní. Yo no como camote con maní. Yo no como camote con maní. Yo no como camote con maní.
Excellent. All right. So this is what's the name of this instrument? Cajon. Very good. Okay, a second instrument we brought is the cajita, which means small box. Cajita. Miguel is holding one, and as you've seen, these watercolor paintings are from 1800s, and it already shows here a musician playing the cajita. So this is just to show you that this instrument is very old, and it was usually played on parades, on street parades, because you can hang it around your neck and you can walk and play at the same time. So we're going to demonstrate the cajita. So that's the cajita. Isn't it a beautiful instrument? Oh, it's so beautiful. And guess where that instrument came from? You're never gonna guess. We can spend the rest of the day trying to guess, and you're never gonna guess where this instrument came from.
Tell us.
From where?
Tell us.
Oh, tell us. Anybody wants to guess? Maybe guess. Take any guess. The kids say, "Oh, you're selling chocolates or something." No. The kids always have very creative ideas. This instrument came from the collection box at church. Who had that? Oh, I knew that. No, it's a hard one. The collection box at church. Because, again, bringing us back to context, remember I'm an anthropologist, so I have to explain things. The African descent people in Lima, I mentioned that Lima was one of the main cities where colonialism happened, and the Spanish established in Lima, which meant that they had to build the cities, right? The city. And if you are in Lima, you will see that in downtown Lima, there's churches everywhere. There's the cathedral, but then you turn the corner, there's a church. You take one block, another church. And then you turn around and there's another church. There's a lot of churches. And who built those churches? African descent people, the enslaved people, right? They built the churches, the roads and everything. They painted the churches. They did some artistic images as well, decorated the churches, cleaned the churches, played music at the church, and they also collected the money at the church. And they found this box and they converted it into a musical instrument. So that's the history behind this box, this little box, small box. And originally it wasn't a stick, it was probably a coin. I think that's what the story tells, that they would go around and with a coin collecting money at church. So again, this is an old instrument, and it is the beauty of it. As you saw, you can walk and play. With a cajon, you can't, because you are sitting down, you can't play and walk, right? But with a cajita, you can use it for parades. So mainly was used for Catholic parades, Corpus Christi parades, processions in Lima. Okay, so we have the cajon, cajita, and we brought another instrument. We brought a lot of instruments, but a third instrument that is considered part of the core of Afro Peruvian music is the quijada. Say quijada. Quijada means, yeah, but guess from who is this quijada? Close, close. No, CAJóN is a little wider. It's close to horse. Mule, yes, burro. Can you say burro? Quijada de burro. That's the name. It's a donkey, donkey jaw. So Miguel is going to demonstrate the donkey jaw. Oh, well, yeah, it's very healthy donkey. By the way, very healthy donkey. Went to the dentist. We don't know the name of the donkey. The kids always ask me, "Do you kill the donkey to get the jaw?" Like, no, we probably wait until the donkey dies, and then you cry for the donkey, because it's a very useful animal, especially in the rural regions. For example, where Miguel comes from, where people still work on cotton plantations and other asparagus. They grow a lot of asparagus, and the donkey is an instrument of they load the donkey with all the stuff that they collected, and when the donkey dies, they grab the jaw and make a musical instrument. And the teeth are slightly loose here in the socket, and when you hit the bone, they rattle. Right? And you can also scrape the teeth, like Miguel is going to demonstrate. Okay, Miguel, go for it. Isn't it cool? So smart, right? Who would have thought that a donkey jaw would be a musical instrument? So we forgot to teach a pattern for the cajita. So let's learn a song to play cajita as well. No, la cajita. Yeah. Can you say la cajita? Loca. Toca. Okay, so the crazy cajita plays. So the rhythm goes: la cajita loca toca. La cajita loca toca. La cajita loca toca. La cajita loca toca. Good. So as you see, Miguel has his left hand is holding the lead. The lead is keeping the beat. So when you're sitting down, you can go with your left hand, right? And then this one is keeping the beat. With this one, I'm gonna do the other part, right? So we say, chi 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 pum. Chi 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 pum. Chi 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 pum. Chi, this is not very creative like the other ones, but chi chi pum. Chi 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 pum. Chi 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 pum. Chi 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 pum. Chin 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 pun chakacha. Chin 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 pun chakacha. Chin 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 pun chakacha. Chin 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 chin. Good. All right. Yo toco la quijada y tú tocas la cajón. We're gonna do one song for fun to demonstrate the quijada, and then you can actually switch cajita quijada so that you get a feel of how these instruments sound together. Vamos a African descent people made music when they didn't have anything whatsoever was their body, clapping, stomping, stepping. So you have the tradition here in the US of tap dance. In Peru, we also have a tap dance tradition called zapateo. Okay? And, see question? Microphone. Oh, sorry. Did everybody hear what I said? Kind of. I was just explaining that the body has been also a musical instrument like tap dance, stomping, clapping, right? Singing. That's another way in which African descent people made music. And in the US, you have the tradition of tap dance. In Peru, we also have a style called zapateo. Zapateo comes from zapato, right? And Atajo de Negritos is a tradition practiced in Miguel's town specifically. It's a Christmas tradition. And kind of like a caroling, you know, when you go in to knock on the door, you sing, and then you go to the next door and you sing. It's kind of like that. But this one is pretty amazing because it involves a dance troupe of many dancers stomping and singing at the same time. And it's particular to Miguel's region, his town. So we're so lucky to have him here. He's the one in the front, in the photo that you see there. He's a caporal, he's a lead dancer of the troupe. So Miguel is going to demonstrate and talk a little bit about those elements, those symbols, things that they use in this tradition, and I'll do my best to translate.
Bueno, en la tradición tenemos el sombrero,
So in this tradition we have this crown.
que es una corona,
It's a crown.
y después las bandas,
The sashes that they wear,
que son amuletos para colgar los deseos que uno pide en la vida.
so it's like amulets or things that you ask life to give you. You hang around in these sashes.
Y después están el látigo y la
So
campanilla,
the whip and the bell are two other elements that they use in the dance
como símbolo de poder.
as a symbol of empowerment. The whip, you know where the whip comes from, right? Punishment, right? And then the bell from church. But they took those symbols as a way of empowerment, and they include them in the dance.
Y todo el vestuario hace remembranza a los Reyes Magos.
Yeah. So and also the whole costume and the look reminds of the Three Kings Day, right? That they came to see baby Jesus, right? So January 6th, which is Three Kings Day, is a central day where they dance all day from 8 a.m. till midnight. Okay, so Miguel is going to demonstrate we're gonna do one piece of this tradition. This tradition involves 26 dances. Miguel is gonna do one for you. Okay, so I'm gonna get the violin. This particular tradition is played with the violin. It's used. His father, Miguel's father, Don Amador Ballumbrosio, was a very important character in this tradition, and thanks to him, this tradition has been preserved. Yeah, and then Miguel is the kid number 11 of 15 kids in the family. All of them musicians and dancers. And yeah, all of them artists. So we're gonna demonstrate a little bit of Atajo de Negritos, and then we have a little bit of time for questions if you have any questions, and then we have to run out of here because Miguel teaches at the university at 11:30. So we have to rush, but here we go. Sorry.
Compañeros a la papa, compañeros a la papa con amor, a trabajar con amor, a trabajar para mis maridos.
Okay, we have a little bit of, isn't he incredible? Yes, Miguel, we're so fortunate to have him here in Washington State. It's amazing to me. I met Miguel when he was 8 years old. When I was back in Peru doing my research, you know, I was studying the Afro Peruvian tradition, and I met Miguel and the whole family. Miguel was a little kid, all quiet and shy. I'm so excited to have him here with us today. Do you have any questions, please? I'm sure you do. Let's see, over here, then you.
I've gotten a clear sense of what came from Africa. What came from the indigenous people?
That's a very good question. She's asking, well, I'm very clear about the African influence of what came from Africa to Peru, but what in Peru is indigenous, or what's kept a lot. We were very lucky that the indigenous, we were able to preserve at least 45% of the population in Peru is indigenous. So the Quechua language has been preserved, fortunately, which unfortunately in this country, a lot of languages have been lost and people are trying to revive some languages. In Peru, we were able to keep the Quechua language, which in the 1970s we had a coup, a military coup, and part of the project, some of you may remember this, I don't know, 1968, 1970s, the Quechua language was required in schools. So we've been able to preserve that, and because we have 45% of the population in Peru is indigenous, a lot of the traditions are still very much alive. So we've been lucky that way.
Music.
In music, there's a lot of music all over the country that is indigenous. Practice the panpipes, right? The quena, the charango. There's a lot of music that's being practiced. You had your hand, and then you.
Is this working?
Yes.
Okay. I love this music. It's wonderful, but I'm wondering why you were not permitted to use the regular old-fashioned things that American people had.
American people, like indigenous people?
Yes, yeah.
Well, there
Were
was...
they considered dangerous, these people?
Skin drums were considered dangerous because people were using the skin drums to communicate, too powerful. So that was prohibited. The indigenous instruments were pretty much banned. And as you see, I was playing the violin. The violin in Peru is played among indigenous people because they were forced to adopt European instruments. So they lost a lot of their indigenous instruments. And for a long time, African descent people and indigenous people were not supposed to mix, because if they organized, if they married, if they organized, it was too dangerous for the the status quo and the Europeans. So there was a lot of prohibition of practicing their own religious traditions. They had to hide it. That's why we have syncretism in a lot of parts of the Americas. Couldn't play their own instruments. They had to come up with whatever they could to continue being themselves and practicing their traditions, right? So I don't know if that answers your question. Yes, thank you.
I spent some time in Bolivia, and what about the Aymara language?
Aymara language.
Is that spoken also in Bolivia?
Yes, in Bolivia and in Peru. That's Aymara language is one of the indigenous languages on the southern part of Peru and into Bolivia. Bolivia and the southern part of the Andes in Peru share a lot. The boundaries, the national boundaries are really political, but not necessarily cultural, right? Even Bolivia and Peru share the Lake Titicaca. We share that lake. So culturally, Bolivia and Peru are very similar on the southern part of Peru. And Aymara is still very much alive. Thank you for that question too. Great questions. Oh my God, I wish I had left more time for more questions. Yes.
When was the end of slavery in Peru?
1854. 1854. She asked when was the end of slavery in Peru? 1854. Good questions. Any other Any other questions? Maybe we have time for one more and then we have to run out of here. Any more questions? Any more questions? Oh, thank you. Did you enjoy the presentation? Good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing us. It is such an honor for us to have opportunities to speak of this and make visible cultures that are pretty much invisible. People don't get to learn about, right? So thank you so much. ¿Quieres decir gracias?
Sí, muchas gracias por escucharnos y ser parte de esta historia que venimos llevando por el puente de la vida.
Thank you so much for listening and for being part of the history that is a bridge that keeps us going in this life, in this world. Thank you so much. Gracias.
Well, thank you all so much for your attention, and hopefully you all learned a lot that you can share with a neighbor, share with a friend. Just a couple of quick announcements. Again, Diversity Week is all week long. So tomorrow we have another food truck. It's going to be a Hawaiian food truck. So tomorrow is Hawaiian Day, okay? And the restaurant's name is Buddha Brother. So, yes. I will try to print out the menu in advance and get with Emily so she can put it on the bulletin board out here so you all can just see what the offerings are in advance. And that food truck will be available tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Okay, so just a FYI. Also, they do accept credit card and cash payment for tomorrow, unless otherwise noted if something changes in the morning when they come. But so yeah, just a FYI. Again, the food trucks will be right out here in the same spot. So hopefully you all will come back tomorrow and engage in the Hawaiian culture. Thursday, we don't have anything going on with Diversity Week per se because it's the Halloween party here. So we'll be switching it up. And then Friday, we will have a local Seattle group bringing us some nice desserts and treats, also via food truck out here on Terry Avenue. Any questions about anything in regards to the Diversity Week events? Keep posting, I sure will. Emily is my go-to. She made the lovely PowerPoint presentation that we will continue to have looping throughout the rest of the week. So thank you so much, Monica and Miguel. Charlene is going to take you down, okay?
Thank you.